So my name is Dom. I'm a production manager, sound engineer first. When I'm not here, I'm sound engineer at Christian Cultural Center, a big mega church in New York. When I'm not doing that and I'm home, I'm technical director at 2 different performing arts schools. And that's a lot. And then I've toured with people like Whitney Houston. TJ and I both met, actually prior to the Whitney Houston tour, we toured with Guy, New Edition, MC Hammer, all these super fests, all these jazz fests, all the whatever. We've done it all. Then we worked with Whitney Houston. I was with her for 21 years. He did half the tour. Then he went on to other artists. Him and I actually, we work with each other a lot with different artists. If I have a gig I can't do, I call him in and I swap for him a lot of times. So that's my life. It's very simple.
Oh, my name is TJ, sound engineer. I'm happy to work with these guys for years, and I'm just here to try to share some knowledge when I get someone like you, so we can like pass it on. Just like we talked to Sean, you guys know Sean Sturgis, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Sean actually hires people, at a sound company, and working for a larger sound company, you would see get your hands on more gear that you normally wouldn't be able to get your hands on.
Right.
And also be around more experienced people in the area, so you can pick up on things like that. And of course, at this they will train you in a certain area. Now, I'm not sure how they start you off at a sound company. I'm not sure how that works.
Well, I know when I worked at Brentley Audio in Nashville,
Mm-hmm.
they put me on the bench soldering for
Oh, okay.
a long time. That was just that company.
Okay.
Then when I worked with Sound Image, they put me out at Humphreys by the Bay, so it was totally
Humphreys by the Bay. Okay.
Did a bunch of shows there.
Yeah, sound
Well,
image.
okay, I worked for ProMix. ProMix at one point ran half the Broadway shows in America. So it had, any show you went to, you'd see a ProMix logo with the Union logo. I came in there already doing Broadway and off-Broadway shows. So my first day, they had me uncoiling cables and recoiling cables. That was my first day. Then I talked to the technician. I told him, hey, I have a degree. Morgan, I have a degree in electronics.
There he is.
Because I went to school for electronics. So the next day, I was like you. I was on the bench, soldering, fixing stuff. On the third day, I'm repairing the consoles. Had the schematics, had the meters, boom, boom, boom. On the fourth day, I was out in the field doing installs. And back then, we didn't have chain motors. Back then, it was hoisting the speakers. So, because chain motors were still kind of new. So we would hoist speakers up. I'd climb up on the grid. I had my harness on, and I would rappel down behind the speakers to unplug to test cables behind the speaker, because you couldn't bring the rig down to the ground. So I'd go up 60 feet up, drop my rope, rappel down. Boop. Okay, is the speaker working now? Is this speaker working now? Because when you're stacking speakers so high and you play the music, it sounds like it's working, but when you take it up, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, we're not hearing that. Up there, rappel down. I mean, again, this is back 80s, 90s. Then motors started coming out. Then line arrays started coming out. Then, okay, now we just drop the PA, fix it, fly it back up. But in those days, I used to love it.
Yeah, I know you.
Rappelling.
That's his thing.
I just love everything. So I learned so much about everything. I remember, I'll just give you, with Whitney, I was her sound guy, but anything that breaks, I would repair it. So every day for rehearsal, Whitney would come on stage and I'd give her mic. I'd make sure it sounds right in the monitors, front of house. Here's her mic, boom. So one day she comes on stage and somebody else gives her the mic and she's like, where's Don? And the band just goes, and she looks up and I'm 40 feet up in the air, upside down, soldering a motor for a curtain that drops. For some effect we had where this curtain does this shh, and somehow one of the motors died. And there's no way to drop the whole thing, so I went up there with a motor, I'm doing my thing, and I'm upside down soldering. And she's like, and then, you know, I finish and I just come straight down head first, which is called an Australian. And I drop full speed, boom, flip around to the ground. And she's like, don't ever do that again, I love you. It was just, I used to have so much fun on the Whitney Houston tours.
Anyway, so that's it. The point is to be versatile. Keep everything open.
But also learn about soldering, learning how to test wires. It's important to have a cable tester. A lot of times, older cables, people used to make them by hand and sometimes would accidentally flip the ends. So you'd have a cable out of phase. And you need to know, hey, I got the cable tester, oh, this is wrong. Go in there, resolder it. There's some nights when him and I, we would take a bunch of cables back to the hotel and we're repairing them because there's no time to order cables or buy cables, run to a music store, get something. It's like we're on tour, we have a big function, this just died, that just died. It's our job to make sure it works. The artist doesn't care how, just make it work. So we used to repair and build a lot of stuff on tour just to make the flow easier.
Did you meet a guy named Taphole?
Yeah, Temple.
Out of Memphis?
Mm-hmm.
This gentleman next to you, Mr. Lauren, we got to introduce you to the two ladies that's here real quick.
We sort of met last night.
Oh, okay.
But we didn't I didn't get your name though. Debbie.
Okay.
Lorraine. And I know this.
Oh,
right here.
Oh, you guys already know a little bit. Okay, I'm just checking in.
She got the first private class.
Oh, she got the first private class?
Over in the digital room.
Oh, nice.
Well, for this young lady, just give us a little history of you, just a smidgen.
Lorraine White from the Bay Area. The first band I joined, I started doing sound for them. And from there, I was like 14 when I joined. I ended up going to school for audio recording engineering, thinking I was going to be on stage.
Yeah.
And I just kept getting hired to be behind the console. So
Right.
this is the path that was before me. Started out in the Bay Area, a few clubs, and I worked for George Lucas for a period of time this is all while I was in college. And then when I graduated, I took off on tour from an artist that came into one of the clubs that I met and got the touring bug. Kind of just kept on through there. Still stayed with live sound and actually studio work, something I didn't tell you guys before, up until we had the dot-com boom and everybody could afford like Pro Tools, Cakewalk, and everything like that. Basically stayed on the road. And so the last, how I met this gentleman, actually, even though we grew up in the same area, we just came off a tour where I was with Lionel Richie. You know where he's from. So yeah, we just came off that tour, and I work with my main console choice is Digico. You saw the shirt, and we talked about it just briefly. So while on the tour, Digico asked me and Dr. KC, hey, would you mind coming to do the training? And so here I am, trying to pass some knowledge.
Oh yeah, it was good. Yesterday was really good.
Yeah.
That's a
And
question
learn.
for you later.
And learn.
Right.
Because even though we were doing some trainings, I was learning from these gentlemen as well. So
And
it's always a good opportunity.
Okay. One thing that he said yesterday was learn everything because sometimes you don't get the sound gig, sometimes you get something else. And a great example of that was, even for me, getting on the Whitney tour. Prior to Whitney, I'm a sound guy, I'm a stage manager. Whitney already had a stage manager and a sound guy. So they wanted me on the tour because of, you know, what we did and how good we did it. So they brought me in as a keyboard tech. They're like, can you set up keyboards? You don't have to know how to program it, you can learn it on the road. I was like, okay. So I came in on the Whitney camp as the keyboard tech, setting up the keyboards, setting up Kirk Whalen, who plays the saxophone for I'll Always Love You, that he had an EWI rack. So I'm setting up all this stuff. But then, once I'm set up, then I'm running the stage with the stage manager. Then I'm doing monitors with the monitor guy. I don't have to go back to the keyboard player if they had an issue. So, you know, it's all about learn everything, because you never know how you go in. And then when the stage manager left, and I just took over as stage manager. And then when the monitor guy got fired, well, multiple guys got fired. You know, I just kept taking over everything. And then when the production manager got fired, then I became production manager for Wavy. So, but still, even though I was production manager, I was still a stage manager and set up keyboards. So, you know what I mean? You learn it all because you never know where and how it all connects. But it just makes you more valuable for the next act that comes in.
Well, I just know by me being married, you know, went through 2 marriages in this business, I just know it brings the check at home if you more versatile in this business. You know, you can always have some type of income coming in.
I'll add on to that. So even though, like you say, you're doing sound or you're driving the bus or whatever, you know, if you learn those other skills, you may be able to just, even though this, whatever you're doing is your forte, you at least understand the other cogs that are in the chain, right? So sometimes you can go up and assist with the keyboard situation. Maybe it's not your thing, but you can at least go up, get the show going. You know, that may not be your gig, but if you're aware of those things, and again, you understand, you know, driver's time, you know, so when they get there, they're generally ready to roll. You can't hold up a driver.
One more thing.
Things like that.
And you know, I started out doing monitors, and I know in this bit, monitor guys go like this, in and out. So you may be that next guy they need. You know, you may jump from a drum tech. Oh, he know how to do monitors. Put him up there.
Yeah.
And it happens like that.
One thing I can tell you that what I've seen over the many years, that there are many paths to the same destination. We all probably started out one way and wind up doing something else. I know TJ was an electrician. He's a mixer now. And so a lot of times I see a lot of young people and they think that they have a direct path to the end goal that they want to do. And what happens is, if you have knowledge and understand how things work, it'll work for you if you have information and you have knowledge, because there's going to always be a need. Always. Somebody's going to always need help. And if you're willing to learn and willing to absorb a lot of things, doors will open to you. And then what happens is, I don't know about you guys, but it's always been somebody else that I've formed a relationship to help me get me in the door versus me trying to walk through the door myself. I tell everybody, all of the biggest gigs I've ever done, I've done some of the biggest shows. And I can tell you, every last one of those big gigs, it was because I had a relationship with somebody else, and they walked me through the door.
Being in the right place at the right time.
And so you have to, and the thing is we're not really afforded opportunities that other people have. And so if you have the knowledge, once you get there, handle your business, learn as much as you can, absorb, and the rest will take care of itself. And for me, that's the biggest thing, being able to be available and be willing. Because everything is on time. There's a time that there's a dock call for. There's a time that bus or the truck has to be at the next venue. And so if you can be of assistance to other people in the know, they will watch you, they'll see you, and they'll be like, okay, this young lady right here, you need to get her because she can do X, Y, Z. Like he was talking about Sean, he does that. I've known several guys that have been younger than me. They've been in the game less time than me. They got a relationship. I was like, hey man, call this guy will take care of you. And Sean has delivered every single time. And so my advice to you is to try to learn as much as you can and be willing and available to do what you want to do. And the world is yours.
I call it like keeping your feet wet. You know, it's like it's an ocean. You know, how many different fishes is in the ocean. You know, just keep your feet wet in this business. No matter what you do, you're still in the same pond as everybody else.
Okay.
something to be said what you just said about the St. Pond. I have to remind sometimes some coworkers, you never look down on anyone in the industry.
Mm.
Right, because because of those stage hands are there to assist or whatever, you can't demean them.
Mm.
And the thing is, sometimes that may be your call to navigate. You know, so no matter how where you think people are in the hierarchy of chain, you treat that person that seems at a lower level, just give them it's the same respect as someone at the top, because that may be the connection that gets you somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And overall, you never know who's looking at you, right? So, just like, you know, hopefully your parents or grandparents or whatever say, it's like, you treat people how you want to be treated, right? So you give everybody respect. So I check my text sometimes. Check your tone. Because
Yeah.
sometimes people are learning. Right? And I will say, and I'll go in and say, you know, you guys know how to wrap cables. Okay, maybe now is not the time to learn.
Right.
Come back to me when we are loaded in, and I'll teach you how to wrap cables. If you don't know what latches are and how to do that correctly, come back to me at another time. Because right now, even more so because of post-pandemic, a lot of the hands are new. People don't know how to do certain things. And so I get sent a group of people, they really don't know audio, but they're sent to me as audio. So I will sit there and take the time, because I'm not rushing. I'm not saving lives. You know, I'm not a brain surgeon. I'm not the one that's in there. Yes, it needs to happen fast, but it doesn't need to happen like lickety split. So I will take the time and I will tell people, this is how we drop the console. This is how we lift it. You know, let's lift together. Everyone mind your backs. You know, do the methodical things, right? You know, and I think we kind of talked about this briefly yesterday about, you know, just keeping things clean and being aware of how things are set up. So this is something that you just have to do, because again, you never know that next person that you've crossed, you may see them, and as they say, you know,
If you stand
they're going up,
you will see.
they're coming down,
You will
right?
see.
So you just never know. So you just give everybody respect. Obviously, you know, even if they're coming off at a different way, obviously, you know, we want to respect ourselves, especially in this industry, right? And you know, there's been many times I've been the only person of color in a huge organization.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
So,
Been there.
you know, I'm just coming off and giving myself to the production and seeing where things can be addressed. So, like I was saying, I told these folks the other day, I got brought into one of the big chase things, and I was brought in as the A1, but I didn't need to mix, because that was not the goal. The goal was to keep everything smooth. So I gave it to an A2, even though we had an A3 and some other people. You do the mixing. I know where things need to happen faster than me sitting at the desk. I don't need to be at the fader, right? So the overall production saw that and was like, oh, this is great that you're in that position, because then I can assess things much faster, because I know what I need to look at, I know what needs to happen, I can anticipate things, because I like being proactive, you know. So that's another thing you have to do is, what can you anticipate that's going to get us to this end goal, you know, and that's what you try to do. So it's, TJ he would come over to me and monitor, what are you working on now? Every day,
Right.
you know, every day.
Right.
Because I'm always trying to anticipate what can be the problem, or what can be done better, how do I assess this. So even though we're on tour, we're doing a rinse and repeat, you know. It's just like this gentleman, when he would go to front of house and he's doing some stuff at his desk, and, you know, again, we try to assess situations, we try to make things better, you know, whatever that is, and just trying to, again, represent yourself. you know, how you come into different things, and again, you can assist. So once you get your stuff together, you can assist. You can see what's going on. I mean, like the gentleman, I've had to be a tour manager. I've had to do a production manager. I've had to do stage manager, all while still doing sound.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
so again, you know, sound was my role. They got me in there, and they said, "Oh, hey, Loren, can you?"
Can you?
And it's like, yeah, let's look at that, you know. But so again, you just never, like I said, you never know what your path may take you, because you may start in sound or driving the bus or whatever, and you may love that, but you may love something more. You never know.
When I was on the amateur, I used to, you know, have the opportunity. I used to jump in the truck sometimes. I just want to see how they roll, you know. And Al Heyman seemed like they used to tease Al Heyman like he'd close his eyes on amateur and just throw dots. The truck had to be
Right.
The truck had to be in the next city, and that's a 500-mile run.
And they
you
come
know.
back.
And then the loadout, you know, takes you up, you know, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. They gotta be there at 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock, you know. So I used to ride in the trucks. I used to sit up there, and we had this guy named Danny. He was out of New Jersey somewhere. Danny was just buck wild. I'm like, man, I'm going back in your cab and sleep. If we crash, I don't want to sit.
Okay.
Hey, I was going to piggyback on what he said just for a second. I did a show called Mama Wanna Sing, one of the very first black off-Broadway musicals to ever go into white Broadway houses. Hit a lot of racism, you know, because these houses, especially down south, they don't like black people.
I grew
And then
up
to
with
have
that,
them
trust me.
have them in their union houses, we're non-union. We actually had to become. They tried to make us yellow cards at least, and nothing happened. But anyway, I remember one. I had. They send you stagehand. You're like, okay, this is your sound crew, this is your lighting crew, blah blah blah. And one guy just kept disappearing on me, and I had, you know. So I needed a guy for the show to page mics, because back then we didn't have wireless mics, it was hardwired. The guy's on the ClearCom, yep, I'm ready to give out the mic and blah, blah, blah. The artist goes over there, there's nobody. She has to grab the mic, pull it out herself. I'm like, where are you? He said, I'm right here on the side of the stage. Can't find the guy, right? But he's on ClearCom. So, intermission, I go backstage, I don't see him, and I see where the ClearCom is, and he connected an XLR cable out of it and ran it out, down the hall, outside the building, down the block, and he's sitting at the bar, having a drink.
Wow.
And, you know, what do you do? And then, well, so, you know, it's like, I could get upset, I could do this, but I was like, you know what? I'll just do it. I have no problem. I'd rather not have a conflict and possibly cause my show to have an issue. So I just let it go. You know, I thanked him for his help. I was like, I know, you know, you weren't really into this, but, you know, I thank you anyway. I thanked him. We loaded out, found out that his dad was the head of the union, was the head of the house, and now he's the head of the house. And every time I come back into that city, I'm not gonna say what city, you know, he thanks me for what he knew he was an asshole, but he was able to realize, you know. So, you know, you run into people, you have issues, but it's how you handle it. Because like you said, you could run into them in the future, and now he's over any production I go in.
Right.
So I'm glad I stayed calm and just did what I had to do.
Well, since you're talking about the racial thing, I mean, the era I came up in, early 80s, the racial thing was real prominent. You know, it's like, you know, the white guys get all even though you was better than this guy, you still not gonna be in front of that desk, you know. My best friend is a white guy who came up and he said, man, I'm gonna work more than you just because of my color. You know, you know, now it's a little different now, but it's still there.
Right.
It all depends on, you know.
Well, even when I got hired to work for Disney, I got hired to work for one of their pop acts. And I was the only black guy in the entire theater.
Right.
The audience was all white, everybody. I'm the black guy. Security would still come and check, who are you?
Right, right.
I got a laminate. I'm mixing the show.
Right.
You know, and this was Disney, you know, because Disney never hired black people as engineers or so. For the several months that I toured with, you know, with these pop acts as the engineer, every house we went to, somehow some guys were like, we had one black guy in here before, and he caused a lot of ruckus. You gonna be the same way? I'm like, no. I mean, some people would actually ask me this, and you know, what am I gonna say? Hell yeah, you know, you guys don't like black people. You know that.
Well, me and this guy, Doug Nightwine, he lives in New York now, but he took me on my first rock and roll tour. It was the Outfield and some other guys, but I took him on his first R&B tour.
Mm-hmm.
So he came out with the Barcades, and we was going through some part of Alabama, and all these black guys getting off the bus at this little diner, getting ready to get something to eat. He the only white guy gets off the bus with some shorts on, tank top, and a flip flop. So when he go in the diner, they would not even serve him.
Wow.
So Doug turned around, walked out, mooned the whole cafe. he mooned the whole cafe. Next thing you know, Sheriff pulled up right in front of the bus. We had to take him off the bus, and take him downtown, booked him. You know, James Alexander bailed him out. And that was the end of that story. But you know, he was the only white guy in there, rest of the other. Hanging out with black guys.
Wow. Hey, there's another guy here. His name is Mr. Dole. Right there. He's the engineer.
Dole, tell us a little bit about yourself for the new people.
For the new people?
Yeah, right here. And right up here.
Okay. Hey, how you doing? I'm Dole from Philadelphia, born and raised. And I got introduced to the sound industry through church. And then I grew up in a church that had no monitors and maybe 2 microphones and all-in-one mixer, which is like an amp and 4 channels in one.
I remember that.
So it was Samson or PV, I think it was.
Okay.
So then I got the light into that. Started traveling with community choirs locally, and I got tired of hearing feedback. So, and whistling, so I figured out where that came from. And then I started getting to sound engineering and just traveled many years with Todd Tripp in the GA, which is great artists, and then toured with many artists. And so now I have my own production company, and we service, provide for whatever it needs, any size venue, anything that has it. So I'm a JBL house, and that's what.
Oh, I need to ask him about that, Jay.
Yeah.
So question for you two. You guys have any kind of questions or concerns that you're thinking about? Like, I never knew this, or I wonder what's going to happen here, or something like that.
In reference to, I do want to know what's going to happen with us on the minority side, getting boxed out of certain things. Meaning, give example, like here in Atlanta, the Music Matters is kind of like a bully to me because they get all the shows.
Who does?
Music Matters.
Music Matters. They get all the shows, and they got maybe one black guy around. They get all the shows. So you got that going on. But then on our side of it, it's called Urban Live Nation. Them guys don't respond to nothing. Emails, calls. Because there's guys in Atlanta that have that same stuff that everybody wants.
Oh, okay.
That are black owned. They can provide what they need, but it's like a disconnect of, I don't know if they don't trust people, I don't know. It's just like, and so I just want to know how can we be more in tune, and then these production managers that work for a lot of artists, they don't even have us like in their radar of providing gear for them. So that's just my little dilemma on my side of things,
Right.
because there's no point in me buying more gear if they going to answer the phone.
Well, I would say this. because I do work in that space as well, in the church market. And what it boils down to is, from my perspective, is relationships. If you have relationships with people, say for instance, like you were talking about the competitors or those kind of things, a lot of times I see that they don't have everything. And if you have a relationship with them, you can be a pipeline for things that they need. And what happens is they can't do all of the shows. So if you make relationships with promoters or different other people, at some point in time you will get an opportunity. And it's what you do with that opportunity when you get it.
I understand what you're saying, but like, I'm gonna use an example. State Farm Arena area, you see Mariners gets first dibs, period.
Oh, okay.
It's in a paperwork.
They don't let nobody else bid
They
on
don't
it.
let, some of the people that come there, they won't let you even get in. You can't even bid on it. So, I remember my first show there with them, they was like, well, who are you? Where you come from? Like, who are you? So I had to go through all that little nonsense, and all that extra red tape and diagrams, and they wanted to check the cables and all this dumb stuff. So you can come into the building. So that happens a lot on the East Coast to me in terms of certain venues, because they got these, I guess, first right, something like that, whatever. Then they got this other thing where like if they don't like what you're presenting to the whoever the client is, they had a right to chump it. Like, oh no, that ain't gonna meet our standards. So we need to bring them in. And I'm like, well, how did y'all? My whole thing is, how did y'all get that type of connection or a contract to do all this? And then now, because for them, that's a multi-million-dollar client every year because everything that comes to town, they get first dibs. So you got to go in and be like, no, that's another guy that can do X, Y, Z. That's what happens here a lot.
Well, like I said, part of it is
Knowing someone, right?
knowing somebody, but also give them a list of, talk to the promoters and say, hey, this is what I offer, my company offers, this is the equipment that you have. If you have an artist that's coming in and needs any of this stuff, we're available. Because like you said, you know, somebody may come in and say, hey, I want blah, blah, blah for my show. This company that they go to normally doesn't have it. Now they have to get it from you. So that's a pipeline in. You have to build a relationship. There's some people who've had relationships since the 70s. You know, you're talking about two kids who grew up together. Now he runs this, he runs this. They're going to keep that connection. So they're only hiring within them. You know what I mean? So sometimes you can't figure out how did they get that connection. You don't know. But the thing is, all you can do is just try to get yourself in there, get your foot in the door. You know, it's hard. Like I said, you know, you may have a particular console or particular box that an artist wants that they don't have. Then they'll call you, but they need to know that you have that.
Yeah, the other side, so take on what you said earlier about the gentleman at the bar. It's like, there's sometimes there's going to be nepotism. There's going to be, obviously, racism. But if you can build that relationship, if you can have those additional things, even though you have a competitor, right? So I work with, you know, the friends that, you know, we pass on information. I work with companies who may have had to supplement gear from obviously a competitor because, okay, you know, say we were doing something, a huge EDM festival in Miami. Well, again, this company I was working with had multiple stages, but I was working at the main stage. Well, we needed a lot of subs, you know, a lot of amps, and the regional company didn't have that. But so they shook hands with another company, regional company, right? And so what they also did was to shake hands more so with that company, was hire a couple of their engineers to run a couple of the other stages. So again, it's networking, right? And as much as possible is giving that resistance, right? So again, you go in, you present what you have, and you know, maybe you maybe send some of your people to work with those other companies at times, you know what I'm saying? So therefore, that company goes, okay, this gentleman or this company has quality people, right? Because what's going to come down to it, it's the people, right? The gear is the gear, right? But if you have quality people that come in, right, are professional, you know, and doing their jobs, then again, that's what looks back and goes, oh, okay. Now I can probably lean on this gentleman or this company or this person or whatever, right? And then go, okay, now we can probably, again, it's that olive branch, you know? So, you know, it's just a form of networking that, you know, I'm guilty of not always reaching out. You know what I mean? I reach out to my friends, but it's always great to be in this situation because I don't get, you know, usually get put in a situation anymore. I used to tour with acts where we did festivals. That was my network, right?
Mhm.
You know, or when I had a house gig, you know, in San Francisco, where I would have engineers coming in and stuff like that. Again, you know, I wasn't mixing. I'm here to help them, so I would get them going, and they appreciated the fact that I'm not trying to lean in on their gig, but I'm doing things that are diligent to get them to get the best gig that they have. And so they would call back and go, hey man, are you available? Can you leave to go and fill in for me? I'm not sure, you know, because again, they knew me as the house guy. They didn't know I also toured, you know. So again, it's all those things that you could do. Just that step may just be an inch, but next year that inch could be a mile. You know,
Cause I have a rough time sometimes trying to get younger guys to be like, hey man, I don't want to work with your client. All I want to do is you give me the thing that you need to do your job. I'm going to provide it for you,
Okay.
so you can be successful. That's where I'm at in terms of being an older, you know, gentleman, whatever. So it's like, hey, I don't want to be in a role with y'all. Just tell me the gear you need 8 years, you need the SD12. You know, so that's just being an option of saying you don't got to call whoever that is, whatever it is.
right,
You got black-owned guys over here
right.
that can provide you the same stuff.
Mhm.
Not ask you to downgrade or ask you to take this little stuff that don't work. So it's just a struggle of trying to get people to trust that the other older guy is going to really do that. Like you said, like they know you got a background, but they might be a little, you know.
Mhm.
Little stuff like that, but it's good that you know that option.
You know, I just say it's networking and being accountable. More so, I think it's we're being accountable
Right.
to then be into the networking side.
So I have a question for the young ladies. Young, I said young. So, you guys have any questions? I know you have some concerns or something. And the reason I say that because you have an opportunity to ask some fellas that's been around what to expect, what you think is going to happen. Now, you kind of heard what happens in the industry from us. Like this is like real situation. This is really how it works. So that will give you an expectation of what to kind of be aware of, so to speak. You know, you say, oh, you have to do this, you got to do that, or yeah, all of that. So nothing's off the table, so to speak. So I'm not putting you on the spot, but if you have questions, it's time to get it
The
on.
question that I always ask people is like, how did you get started? And everybody say they started at a local level. I've only met one person that went to college for it. They went to Full Sail and they can't even get a job.
Well,
And it's like.
That's like regular college.
They
Good
said,
degree.
you know, the Full Sail person came in, well, I want this and I don't do that and I only work for this time and I want to get paid this. And nobody would work with them, nobody hired them. They came in like that.
oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Question.
That's a certain
So
mentality, right?
what is a good school? Because I know a guy, 2 Berkeley guys that graduated yesterday, they pissed because they got to pay all these loans. They said they didn't learn nothing. When it comes to
For the live.
just the lifestyle aspect
That's
of
why
it.
Well, that's the problem. Most schools don't teach live. Most schools teach studio.
Production is-
And that's why you have to go to more of a college that teaches theater, a college that teaches live productions. Going to Berkeley is beautiful. We had a professor, one of the professors there used to be the keyboard player for Whitney Houston. But again, you're studying music. You're learning to play in a band. You're studying studio stuff. how you record with this microphone, you know, compressors, gates, all that stuff is great for studio, but not for live. The settings that you do in studio are not the settings you do for live. How you mic in the studio is not how you mic for live. So you have to have that live experience. So I have a couple students who are actually at Berkeley, and I tell them, when you can, get to any club you can, volunteer, go to open mics, see what they're doing, talk to the engineers, talk to whoever, learn, see, because that's where you're combining the two educations. You're learning about the console, signal flow, repair, whatever, and now you're seeing it live. That's how you learn. And then you learn that there are no set hours. You know, this business, they hire you per day. From when the job starts to when the job ends. That's your gig, not, oh, I work for 9 to 5 and then I'm out. It doesn't work like that in our type of business, especially if you're on tour. You know, like I said, on some of the tours, I had to walk in the theater at 7 a.m. to set up breakfast for my crew prior to the load-in. Then load in, sound check, show, load out, get back on the bus by 2 in the morning, drive all night, and then I'm back in the theater the next morning, 7 a.m. You know, able to take a little nap here and there, but, you know, you're not paid per hour. It's you know, it's like you're paid to get the job done. So you don't learn that in a recording school. You learn a little bit more of that in a school that teaches theater, because shows are different. But you know, I mean, that's just my.
And I was gonna say, it seems like to me, and like you guys can testify to this, it seemed like the quickest way to learn and to get the newest experience is to work for a sound company.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have a lot of things to choose from, there's a lot of people to work with, and that's like a real experience live. And I think all of the technical kind of stuff, you can kind of learn that on the road. Like you just ask someone how to do this. You don't have to read chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right.
He'll just tell you exactly this how this works.
Right.
You can always read later to just emphasize to back up what you learn. But just ask people. If you don't know something, don't be ashamed to just ask, hey, how do you do this? Where does that? Blah, blah, blah.
I always thought, guys go to school, it's good to know the theory of all that, but still with live, if you ain't got it here, if you don't have a good ear to mix, I don't care how much you know.
Right, exactly. And that's another thing
How much
about.
you know. And the only way you tune your ears, like you said, you got to be around it.
Right.
You go to clubs, you listen to these different frequencies, and because I know my first year doing this, I was 19, didn't know how to mix nothing. A friend of mine said, hey, come mix our band. I'm like, okay. The first year, we was at this club in Memphis. Everybody know when Xavier played, wear some earphones. Earplugs, because there's going to be feedback everywhere. You know what I mean? So I learned my frequencies,
Yeah.
So,
Right.
Well, here's a stupid, I'll just throw this out. This is 10 years old, all right? I have a little record player at home, has treble and bass, volume and all that, so I know how to work my record player. I go to church, and we have this guest speaker there at the church. This is in the 80s. And he's talking into the mic. And he sounds like that, and everybody's just like, And I'm just listening to this sounds horrible. So I'm 10 years old, I just get out my seat, walk down the aisle, walk over to the right where the sound console is. I went to the treble and turned it up. Boop. All of a sudden the clarity popped up. I didn't think anything of it. As a kid, I'm just 10 years old. I just walk over there, turn up the treble. Everybody applauded. Next minute, I'm the sound guy for the church. So next minute I'm doing the sound for everything. Started at 10, doing all these churches, and other churches would come and see my church and they're like, man, your church sounds amazing. Next minute I'm getting calls to do other churches and fix their systems. And finding out that a lot of time it's the clarity, it's not the volume. Sometimes their horns are blown, so there's no clarity on the high end. It's learning all of this stuff hands on.
yeah.
So I want to add on to that too. When I first started with the Whitney group, all the musicians were selected. It's political. I didn't know that till I got in there. Every individual was selected you know, because they had records out or whatever. So I'm working with Ricky Minor,
Mhm.
and I didn't know I couldn't hear that well until I started working with these guys. Like those guys can hear, but they're in the studio and stuff all the time. So I'm like, he said, well, turn this up a little bit, I could turn it, and they hear it. I said, I didn't hear nothing happen. You know? I didn't hear anything. Good, right there. But I learned right then, I said, now all these guys have DAC players and CD players. I couldn't afford that. But I had to get that kind of gear so I could listen to how they hear stuff. Just so I could be on the level of them guys, just be able to hear like them. And you know, I could buy me a CD player. Dad, I'm broke. Just trying to listen how they got. So it's important to get your ears tuned to a certain degree, because these people have like studios at their houses, so they hear studio monitors all the time. They can hear. So you want to be there too. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
To your ears.
Also, it's good to, like you said, volunteer at a sound company.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I first got into doing sound, I would go, that's when the PF5D came out, I would just go to the local sound company and just, hey, can I just work with 5D for a couple hours? I would just push every button, see what everything did, piece by piece. Oh, this does that. I would have my friends put the mic into the monitor, and I would have to figure out, which I got on your phone now, figure out what frequency it was, stuff like that. So when I would go places and be moving around, they was like, wow, I didn't do that fast. So that took time to, a lot of times, a lot of engineers want you to, younger guys, they want you to just load into them all this information, but they don't want to get it themselves. So how to figure it out on their own. Because most of the time, most consoles got whatever you need right in front of you, just like, I figure out where's that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, you know, so I would say back in those, not back in those days, but just years ago, I was just volunteer at a sound company. It don't get no better than a sound company, and they got, you know, basic stuff. Most sound companies got some type of digital console now.
Mm-hmm.
And all the platforms is speaking some type of the same language, so you can always learn hands-on what to do. If you learn frequencies, you killing most people already. So.
So I'll piggyback off on that because I was going to talk about that anyway, just whereas you sometimes have to volunteer your time.
Mm.
Yep.
And I'm not saying volunteer, obviously there's that aspect too, but volunteer your time. So like you're working for this sound company, so you may have to, if you're not on a call that day, go into the shop. You know, again, take apart, you know, learn that console, get a microphone, again, get some headphones, learn what your voice sounds like through some speakers, right? And we talked about this as well, where it's, what we're doing is sound reinforcement. If that's your role, right? If you're trying to be a mixer, because you may just want to be a systems engineer.
Right.
You know, you want to maybe be a monitor engineer, you may want to be an RF tech or something in the industry, right? So if you want to be a mixer, understand what are you mixing? Like they're saying, there's those guys, you know, those musicians have ears because they've trained themselves, you know, especially like Ricky Minor. He's an MD, he's a bass player, but he's an MD. So he knows what a saxophone, a sousaphone, a French horn, a violin, knows what those instruments sound like. So when you're then reinforcing that, which our job is sound reinforcement, what that should sound like, that should just translate the same energy, the same tonality, should just be just louder, right? Appropriately so for the room. Right. For the space. We talked, her and I talked about this the other day. Sometimes it's a matter of just going to the stage. What's the instrumentation? What does it sound like right here? Okay, so then I know what it sounds like right here. Now, what is the proper transducer that I need that's going to get this to sound right once I reinforce it back in the room, right? So understanding that, but also understanding, if you get that part where I'm saying transducer, what's the tonality of that transducer? Because you may get a microphone
It may look correct.
Mm-hmm.
That microphone may be out of phase
Okay.
internally. It may sound bad. It may sound muffly. Why does this microphone sound bad? Because this is not what a 58 should sound like.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's a bad microphone, sometimes it's a bad DI. So it's learning those other things, and sometimes that's not going to be, hey, give me that knowledge. No, you need to know what a 58 versus a beta 58 should sound like, right?
Yep.
So that's the other extended part, but then understand what a violin sounds like, what this kick drum should sound like, you know. All those different things, again, you know, when you're hearing your own voice, what's the tonality of that? Because that'll help you bring out a room really fast, you know. So if we talk about just frequencies and things like that, but you go, okay, this doesn't sound, why does my voice not translate well in the room? Okay, it could be nothing about the chain, the signal path that's right here. It could be literally what's going to the speakers, crossover points. Like you said, blown tweeters or something like that. You know, again, this is where you just got too much low end in the room. So it's finding out in that step of the chain, right? Where it lies the potential problem. Like you said, walked over to and turned up the treble. That was the problem in the chain. Someone turned it off. You know, too much low end. Again, it's understanding that and understanding signal flow. You understand signal flow, you can defeat 99% of the problems.
Because, you know, like, I know, like, at my church, you know, you get people like, can you turn that up, turn this up? Like, I'm like, give me a second, you know. Like, well, can you turn it up? I'm like, well, it ain't just about pushing on the fader. I can get volume from a bunch of places. So let me figure out where I need to get it from. You know, do I need to get it from the EQ, the compressor, what I need to get it from? It's just not pulling up a fader.
Sometimes
your volume.
changing the microphone.
Right, it could be a lot of things.
Because every mic sounds different, and it's also different from how far it is from whatever you're miking. Right now, we're supposed to end.
I'm sure we have to
but-
do something else, yeah. Thanks everybody for coming. Let's do this again next year with more people.
Yes.
Yes.